Good morning, Mona Shores Middle School. So today we are going to do the poem by Gary Soto called Oranges. So we're going to meet Gary Soto. He is an Mexican American author. He's written several poems, several novels. Some of you are familiar with some of his work. You may have read it. We do have some of his books here in our LMC. So I just want you, we'll meet him today, and then we will get into our poem called Oranges. So let's start off real quick looking at this warm up. So you guys are getting older, you're getting more responsibility. I want you to think about something that you're proud of, something that made you realize that you are getting older, that you are being given more responsibility, those firsts. So maybe it's that first A, that first successful bike ride, the first time you babysat, or the first time that you drove that four wheeler, first time your parents left you home alone. Um, did you feel differently when it was all done? Did you feel like a sense of accomplishment? Did you feel like, "Oh, I feel a little bit older now? How did it really change you?" I always think about the first time I drove my dad's charter boat out on Lake Michigan, and how that definitely made me feel a lot older, definitely made me feel more responsible. So just take a minute, share a couple of those out inside your crew, and then come on back when you're ready. All right, let's take a look at our author, Gary Soto. Like I said, he's a Mexican American writer and poet. So let's just kind of get to know him just a little bit, and we'll watch this short clip.
I graduated with a 1.6 GPA, and I knew that there was some holes in my education. I'm 18 years old, taking classes in music appreciation, geography, science class, and scared. I mean, I wasn't sure if I was able to do this thing. It wasn't until the second year of my college experience that I understood that I really wanted to become a writer, and it was that the initiative inside me to make it happen. I visited the library. I studied grammar books. I tried to increase my vocabulary. I wrote a lot with all the weaknesses of a beginning writer, but I wanted to make this happen, and I think it was my own initiative that sort of propelled me to another level of ability.
All right, so looking at Gary Soto here, he struggled at the beginning. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do, and then he became a writer, and he worked very hard to learn his craft. So we're gonna take a look at his poem today. So I'm gonna ask you right now to please go to Google Classroom and look for the posting for oranges, and open up this oranges poem analysis. It's a Google drawing. It looks like this. So once you get this opened, I'm also going to ask you to open up the link to the poem called Oranges. So go ahead and do that now. And teachers, pause if you need to. Give students a second to get those two things opened. All right, welcome back, and let's get into our poem today. So we're going to look at the poem Oranges, and this is it's a sweet little poem. And let's go ahead and open it up. The poem goes to two different pages, so it's a little bit lengthier, but it's still a short poem. So I'm going to ask you right now to go ahead and silently read Oranges one time to yourself. Okay, so silently read it one time to yourself. When you're done reading the poem Oranges, then come on back and we'll continue. Okay, I'm going to read the poem one time to you now. Now that you've read it once, it's good with a poem to read it through twice. So, Oranges. The first time I walked with a girl, I was 12, cold and weighted down with two oranges in my jacket. December, frost cracking beneath my steps, my breath before me, then gone, as I walked toward her house, the one whose porch light burned yellow night and day in any weather. A dog barked at me until she came out, pulling at her gloves, face bright with rouge. I smiled, touched her shoulder, and led her down the street, across a used car lot and a line of newly planted trees, until we were breathing before a drugstore. We entered, the tiny bell bringing a saleslady down a narrow aisle of goods. I turned to the candies, tiered like bleachers, and asked what she wanted. Light in her eyes, a smile staring at the corners of her mouth. I fingered a nickel in my pocket, and when she lifted a chocolate that cost a dime, I didn't say anything. I took the nickel from my pocket and then an orange, and I set them quietly on the counter. When I looked up, the lady's eyes met mine and held them, knowing very well what it was all about. Outside, a few cars hissing past, fog hanging like old coats between the trees. I took my girl's hand in mine for 2 blocks, then released it to let her unwrap the chocolate. I peeled my orange that was so bright against the gray of December that, from some distance, someone might have thought I was making a fire in my hands. So here we have this really sweet poem about a young man who goes walking with a girl for the first time and buys her a chocolate. And he doesn't have enough money, so the lady at the counter, he gives her an orange and a nickel, and the lady at the counter is like, "Yeah, I got you." And so he gets his girl the chocolate. And so this is like his first walk with his girl. So right now, I am going to ask you to analyze this poem. So, looking right here, I'm going to ask you to complete this organizer and then turn it in. The first area that you'll look at is the visual imagery. What can you really see in this poem? Something that you can picture, and list 4 things down. Then go ahead and what are some things that you can hear in the poem, some sounds? Or what are some things that you can actually touch, the detail? Put those down. Do the symbolism. What does the orange really represent? It represents something at the very beginning, it represents something in the middle, and then the orange at the very end. All right? What are some images of light or warmth in the poem? So there's areas in the poem that it's very light and there's light and it's warmth. So put those in there. And finally, find some similes or metaphors and put them in there. You need 2. When you're all done, you can turn this in and you can feel free to watch this little depiction of oranges. So there's a clip on here that shows how somebody interpreted the poem. All right, make sure and turn that in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.